Well, what's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday night to you guys here from Orlando, Florida. I hope you're doing well. It is just me tonight. And I know some people in the comments were like, I hope that you're going to have one of your partners on. And it's just me tonight. It's just, we're talking about the housing market. We're talking about stuff going on in Orlando, and I'm excited about it. All the same, you might notice that our background is starting to look a little bit different. I'm still in the studio here at the office, but we're getting to move it around a little bit, trying to control a little bit more of the lighting, trying to control the environment a little bit more, the sound. And so I wanted to, I think it looks kind of good. It looks a little ominous over here with like my like dark side over here, and then the light. I'm digging it. We're going to fill out the back. If you guys are like an OG watcher of my channel, you would know that I used to do this for my house, and I had a bunch of like theme park props and all that kind of stuff. We're going to kind of bring that back over and make this look a little bit kicking it old school, if you will. And so I'm really excited about it. But you guys are already checking in, and I appreciate that more than you know. We start off every show on Thursday nights and we talk about, hey, where y'all watching from? Because I want to create content for you and tell you everything what's going on in Orlando, but really curate that from basically where you're watching. And so we got people checking in from Winter Garden. What's going on, Star? I appreciate you. Kelly checking in from Louisville. What's up, Kenny P? Let's see. Uncle Jesse and the Rippers checking in from coming at you from the city by the bay. We've got Kevin checking in from Southlake, Texas. Good to see you very much so. We've got Wiggy checking in from Kentucky, just all over. People checking in locally from Mineola and Horizon West and Hunters Creek, North Carolina. Awesome showing. I so appreciate that very much. So the topic of tonight is the bubble bursting in Orlando? There's if you guys go, if you want to, you can go on TikTok or Instagram. There's this guy, I think it's Reventure Consulting, and he talks about how the sky is falling, and he has for the past 3 or 4 years. He's talked about how Austin was going to crash, and he's moved to now Orlando, is saying like, hey, this is going to come. And if you say something long enough, it eventually will be right. Like something can't go up forever, and it never does. And that being said, I want to go into the hyper local market of what's actually going on here in Orlando, because really that's all that matters in regards to if you're a homeowner here locally. Now, are there places around the country that are doing are in a rougher spot? Yeah, absolutely. Are there pockets of Orlando that have more opportunity than others? Yeah, absolutely. There too. In fact, there's some, like, if you're looking in the short-term rental Airbnb communities, there's a lot of new construction opportunities out that way. As I've mentioned before, like if you push out really far to some of the more affordable areas, those are sometimes the more susceptible areas to see some of a pullback. And so you're seeing some stuff in Polk City starting to pull back. You're seeing some builders that really got ahead of their skis, where they started raising prices a little bit faster than they should have, especially given our current interest rate climate. And now they're having to kind of retrade backwards and start looking at that. But the one thing I look at, and I'm going to share a bunch of articles today and a bunch of data that I came through, but the overarching thing, I'll get straight to the point, and then I'll hopefully back up and prove what I'm talking about. I look at it from this perspective. If you bought your house in 2020 or 2021 and your house was 300,000, and then in 2022 it was worth 500,000, and now it's maybe worth 485, did you win? Yes. Now, what if you bought it last year? Well, we're still up 5 or 6% year over year from last year, and we're still up from where we were in January of this year. It's an interesting thing locally that for the most part, things are still much further ahead than they were. So let's look over here. There's an interesting article. So will the housing market crash in 2023? This was out not too long ago. 5 experts give their predictions of what's going on, interest rates being what they are. There's a chief economist over at Freddie Mac says that he doesn't believe the U.S. housing is a bubble. He said, listen, there's actually 3 defining characteristics. Price growth is driven by speculation. Bubbles are fueled by credit expansions, and then bubbles pop. So were we in a speculative kind of thing in 2020 or 2021? Was it actually people saying, hey, I can't afford it, but I'm going to buy a house for 500,000, hoping that it gets to 600,000, and then I'm going to cash out and take money off the table? No, we didn't see that happening here in Orlando. It was people just moving here to move here. They were able to work from home. They got a new job. They were retired. The same reason why people always move to Florida, plus the opportunity that we have here in Florida more recently, very different than what it was in 2008 and 2007 when the last kind of economy pulled back hard. And so, yeah, it's an interesting difference compared to then. But what's going on with interest rates? Because I think that that's a question that I get often asked. Right now, interest rates, the current rates, this is an interesting one. This is from bankrate.com. A 30-year fixed rate today is 7.5%. 15-year, 6.61%. 10-year rate is 6. The 5-year, this is the interesting thing to me. What's going on? There we go. Let's stop that. There we go. So it's interesting to me because you look at 5-year mortgages used to be like a 5-year arm used to always be significantly less than a 30-year. And right now, sorry, I'm bouncing around. We'll find this again. Right now, rates between a 5-year arm and a 30-year fixed are actually really, really close. It's 7.364 for a 5-year arm. And so there's not really much of a difference there. These are two other ones I think are very interesting that people are not talking about is that the 30-year fixed rate for an FHA, meaning you're only putting down 3.5%, is 6%, 6.1%. And the VA rate is 6.85%, which are actually a little bit more affordable. So it's been interesting because we're seeing a lot more first-time home buyers re-enter the market, even with price points this high and with interest rates being this high, which makes no sense because you'd think counterintuitively, hey, first-time home buyers, they maybe don't want to buy. When I'm looking at my team and I'm polling, I've got 26 agents that work on the team and we're polling all of the different deals that we're doing. And we're asking, where are buyers moving from? Are they local? Are they renting? And then they're looking to buy. A lot of them are taking advantage of new construction. You could look at new construction. If your FHA rate is 6% and the builder's willing to buy you down to 5, now it really feels like a very affordable option. So that's kind of what's going on. I'm going to go over here. Someone says, that they can't hear. Oh, there we go. I can hear you. Great. We got other people checking in. This is awesome. Margie checking in from Lake Nona. I watch your show and tell my military customers where the place to buy a house. Oh, absolutely. Kim checking in from Connecticut. Good to see you. Angela from Horizon West. Alex from Lake Mary. What's going on? We're going to talk about your neck of the woods here shortly. Holly checking in from St. Louis, watching from our car, waiting for soccer practice to end. I'm curious, soccer, man, like I need to, my kids, my son used to be really into baseball, and I loved doing that. My daughter's getting into tennis. I'm excited to kind of watch that process. But there's nothing like being like a soccer mom or like a soccer family getting together. You guys watching, that's so cool. We got people checking in from Lakeland. What's going on, Kevin? And people from Michigan, so all over the place. So let's talk about different questions that are starting to pop up here. So L. Roberts says, an FHA blocks some of the builder fees as not permitted. So it could be a savings, but then you've got monthly MIP or upfront MIP. Yeah. Mortgage insurance is a big one. So you do have, you've got the 6% rate, but then if you got mortgage insurance on top of that, because you don't have the equity, you're only putting 3.5% down. It can be a little bit more expensive. Absolutely. Charlie asks, what do I think about the Heartwood Marsh Road area by Lake County and in Lake County? I think that whole area, Charlie, I've been talking about this for quite some time. Like that whole entrance into Lake County, especially over Heartwood Marsh, I think is going to be something to pay attention to. I think that as Horizon West fills out and gets completed over the next 4 or 5 years, maybe 6 years, that whole Lake County, Claremont area is going to continue to get more and more expensive and have more demand because by then, in 4 or 5 years, all the connector roads will be done. And so that will be really a great option for you. So if it makes sense for you today, in terms of lifestyle, I think you pull the trigger. But I think it's a really good opportunity for the future. All right, let's keep going. So this is another one in terms of like data and why people are saying that the market is, is this a bubble and sort of thing. Housing affordability hits lowest point since 2007. Homes are now unaffordable for 99% of the US for average Americans. So what happens, right? Interest rates are what they are. The Fed has not, they're actually signaling maybe they might raise it one more time. If not, keep it where it's at for the next 6 to 9 months. And if that's the case, people like me with like a really low interest rate, I'm not moving. I'm hanging out of my house. We're renovating, we're staying put, which means that there's not a lot of inventory in the market. And then things kind of just stay still. There's all the things like student loan debt where you're going to have to start paying your student loan debt again. There's credit card debt. There's all of these other things that are considerations. But for the most part, if you bought a house a year ago, 2 years ago, you're sitting still. It's way more affordable to own the house that you owned in 2020 than it is to sell and maybe cash out and then take a 7.5% interest rate. Although there's a lot of people doing it. We have sellers calling us right now. Hey, I bought a house in 2015, 2016. I've got hundreds of $1,000s of equity. I want to pay off my student loans, sell, and then pay cash for a house, or put 40, 50% down on my next house. We're seeing that a lot too. So it's interesting, from first-time home buyers jumping into the market because they're sick of renting, all the way to people that are cashing out and darn near paying cash for their next place. It's running the gamut. But overall, because the overall inventory is super low, which I'll show you next, that's really what's keeping the market pretty chill, at least here in Orlando. So here's the market watch. What's going on here in Orlando? We've got the past 7 days. This is a really good one to pay attention to for like the 5-county area. This is Lake, Orange, Osceola, Polk, and Seminole counties. This is only single family properties and condos. So this doesn't include manufactured homes, mobile homes, timeshares, any of that kind of stuff. But we've got 1,126 new listings, a lot of new decreases. This has been keeping up pretty consistently. And then you've got really more sold properties over the past 7 days than there were new listings. And again, anytime you're looking at new sales compared to new listings, and if solds outpace new listings, we are in a solid balanced market. And so I've been looking, like, I want to see, listen, as an investor, I kind of want to see more opportunity, more deals, lower interest rates and deals in the market. If the market pulled back 10 to 20%, I think I'd be okay with it in some areas. So I actually do this every month. I run my property portfolio, all the properties that we own, and I say which properties, what is it worth versus the mortgage that I owe versus the rents in the area. And I did this last night actually with all the properties we own. And some of them were up month over month, like 1%. Other ones were flat. So anyways, that's pretty much the whole of it. I just spent 15 minutes to give you an update on what's going on in the Orlando market. So I'd love to hear your questions of what you think, what's going on in your local market. If you live in Orlando, questions you have about your neighborhood, about your county. If you're thinking about moving here, questions you might have around real estate, that would be awesome. Jay says, thanks, or hey, Jay, for in VA, soon to be Four Corners area. Thanks to the Posit Group. I appreciate that. Arlene says, well, welcome, by the way, Four Corners area. Awesome. Arlene says, hi from Belfast. That's awesome. Jeremy says, but first-time home buyers may have saved a bunch of stimulus money, and there's might be a record money on the sidelines of the stock market. So that might be available to buy homes. Listen, I've got a lot of clients doing that, cashing out. They ran up, they bought a bunch of houses over the past, or bought a bunch of stocks. The market's not doing super well the past couple of days, that's for sure. But in general, if they got in 5, 6, 7 years ago, or they're ready to cash out and put something in that they can feel tangibly, like a real estate investment, definitely seeing that as well. Oh, there we go. We got like 10 questions that just popped in here. Daniel asks, random question, but curious if you found if viewership may be seasonal, higher peaks in viewers during winter months from Midwesterners, LOL, and cools off during the summer. Yeah, man, that is a good question and very, very true. So right now, usually our peak viewership is between like October and March. So right, exactly what you're saying. People are looking at, do I want to move to Florida or not? And you got a lot of things going on in the summer. People travel, all that kind of stuff. But no, for the most part, pretty consistent. Christopher asks, what's my opinion between buying a condo in Celebration versus Reunion? Thanks. Love the show. Man, thanks for watching. So Celebration is great if you want to use it for yourself. You know, if you want to not have to rent it out or not have the ability to rent it out, or I guess if you don't mind that you can't rent it out, Celebration's great. I'm a big fan. Reunion allows you to rent it out, short-term rental, if you don't live there. And so if you're gone, many people in Celebration, they're only living there 6, 7 months out of the year. You can't rent it out the rest of the time. In Reunion, you could pop in, pop out anytime you want, rent it out while you're not there, offset some of the income costs. So if you're into that, Reunion is your option. It's also significantly cheaper. I think it's like on average 10 to 15% cheaper for a condo in Reunion as it is for Celebration on the base cost. The thing you got to pay attention to in Reunion is the HOA costs. So if you want to be able to use, like if you want a social membership, if you want a golf membership, all that stuff adds up very, very quickly. And then all of a sudden you're kind of on par for pricing. Now you might say, hey, I don't really want to use the golf course or need the social membership within Reunion, but you got to think about resale. And then if you want to look at renting it while you're not there, the people that want to rent your place, they want the amenities. So something you have to think about, because if you buy a condo or a house in Reunion and you actually don't renew that HOA, or not the HOA, but the membership dues, they won't re-give it back to you. Like it's kind of like if you don't use it, you lose it. And so there's also a lot of things if you're looking online, sometimes it will say full membership included, and then other ones don't. And you will see a price differentiation between the ones that come with the membership and the ones that don't. There's a lot of little nuances there. But really the brass tacks is just, do you want to rent it out while you're there or not? Emmanuel says, how big is the demand in Orlando? Listen, there's still a lot of people moving here. The amount of people that are inbound that still call us is down, I would say, right now, 15 to 18%. And I track those numbers very, very tightly. And so, listen, a year ago, there were definitely more people, but in general, it's not really down. When you think about the market in general for the entire country, the number of transactions is down something like 35 to 40%, and us here only being down 15 to 18%. I think that's kind of speaks to our strength in the area. Cleveland house buyers say, what do I think is going to happen in Keens Point? In terms of like long-term stuff, I mean, I'm a big fan of Keens Point. It's gated. You've got lake access. You're super close to the parks, but far enough to wait where you don't have to worry about tourist traffic. You're 10 minutes from Disney Springs. It's a golf community. I think that what's going to happen in Keens Point is you're going to have a lot of neighbors that look up and say, my house was built in the early 2000s and it needed a lot of work, but I don't want to move. So they're going to have contractors in there that are going to have an absolute heyday. So because they're going to be able to have all this rehab money. I met with a guy for lunch today and we were talking about big opportunities specifically in Orlando. Like, what does that look like? And I think it's really comes down to business owners, people that want to do flooring and plumbing and electric. I've said this for years now. We need more skilled trades. Unfortunately, like I would love to go kick up a new business with all of these different trades. I just don't have the time. I do this for a living and sell houses. But if anybody of you around the country, if you are in that skilled trade or you know how to start that business or you've run one in the past, we've got a big opportunity there for things exactly like Keens Point. Adrian says, how do I get in your pocket listing list? I need a deal. Reach out to us, man. I mean, like we don't have a pocket listing list, although we do send out our coming soons. Like, hey, we got this listing under contract we're getting ready to put it on the market, and we let our database know about that. But feel free to reach out. But if you tell us specifically what you're looking for, we work with a lot of investors. We work with a lot of people that have something very, very specific. I want a first story or one story on the lake, all of those kind of things. Definitely help you out there as things pop up. All right, let's keep going through some of these other things and keep asking questions as along the way. I do love it. I've got a couple other things to think about. I've talked to you guys this before. You guys are a very smart audience at this point. If you look at months of inventory, that's a really great one for me to pay attention to. Months of inventory just means, hey, if I have 100 houses for sale, how long would it take for me to sell all 100 homes? So if it's 20 houses selling in a month, 20 divided into that 100, that would be a 5-month supply of homes. That is considered more of a buyer's market. Something like 4 to 6 months is kind of a buyer's market. 6 months plus is a very strong buyer's market. Anything 3 or under, we consider a seller's market, something that where the sellers still have an advantage, meaning there's more buyers in the market than there are sellers. And so you look at here, this is from our MLS stats. Right now, we've got an overall 2.5% supply of homes. That's overall. But if you look at under 250, under 300, under 400, under 400, there's a 1.6 month supply. And then once you get to 500, there's kind of a 2 to 3 month supply. And then really what's kind of jacking up our average is the over $1 million mark. There's really not too many houses selling in that price point overall, but it's still more in that balanced supply. It's a 4-month supply, which is still, to me, a good thing. And I look at the average sales price for Orlando has never been higher. At this past week was $544 was the average sales price. List the sale price. If you're looking at that, if that's important to you, if you're wondering, hey, if I go out on a house and it's listed for $557, what's reasonably that I can get off in terms of pricing? Well, it says that the average final list price is $557 and the average final sale price is $544. So what is that, 13 grand off? You're talking 2%. 2%. So for some people that reach out and they're like, hey, I want to buy a house and I want to get 20% off, or it's listed for 500, I'm going to offer 450 because the market's slow and there's really high interest rates. The data tells me that that's actually not happening at this point. So something to think about if you are in the market. Let's talk about some other fun stuff, because to me, I love real estate. I don't like talking about bubbles, but I want to be really, really like very clear on what I think is happening. But there's a lot of cool stuff outside of real estate. And let's talk about some of that. Number one was this city was just named Best Foodie City in America. And it's not what you would expect. This is from People magazine. Wallet Hub made a list of the greatest food cities in the US based off affordability and diversity. And Orlando came in at number one. Look at me. Look at me. I was like, number one was Orlando. Like, I live here. I'm an Orlando fanboy, but we made it number one foodie city in the country. Why is that? Okay, so we go back through and it's number one based on foodie cities in America. We beat out 180 other cities, graded on things like grocery costs, restaurant diversity, food trucks per capita. Los Angeles came in at number 13. Chicago was 14. New York was 20. And those are, to me, like when I think of foodie cities, I think of those three. I think of I love like Austin. I think has a really great food scene. Every time I go there, it just blows my mind. But yeah, it's going back around to like costs and accessibility per capita. That's really what it came down to. Was Orlando has a ton of more affordable places to eat, and so with more accessibility to different diverse stuff. And to me, that is true. I love it. I do think that downtown Orlando and some of these other little pocket neighborhoods are getting more and more pop shops, mom and pop shops, which I'm a huge fan of, like homegrown stuff, or people come in. That's just like a smaller thing, not so much of a chain. We're seeing that more and more. And I think that that is just really, really exciting. So if you're watching and you're like, this blows my mind, but I do have that one place that I just love to eat when I go to Orlando, or if you already live here, like what's your go-to spot? I will tell you, my favorite Chinese place closed up this week. We went to order there yesterday. I woke up thinking about Chinese. I was so excited. I went to call and it said permanently closed, and I didn't believe it. I drove over there. Sure enough, my favorite little Shanghai Chinese place in Windermere closed. Total bummer. Anyways, let's get back over to questions. Angela says, well, wait a minute. Where is Reunion? Reunion is, I'll show you on the map here, but it's right off of I-4. It's maybe 15 minutes from Disney. Right off of I-4, that's the easiest way to do it. See? Here. So if you are right here off of I-4, you've got the 429. So the 429 would take you up and over to Horizon West. If you kept going up to 417, it would take you to Celebration. But if you got off, not all the way down to not all the way down to Champions Gate, but right off there, you could take like 429 to Sinclair is my favorite way to get in there, because the back gate is always the easiest gate. It's a really easy way to get in. And so that's where Reunion is. If you look at it on the map, like I mentioned, it's right next to Celebration, because right up here is Celebration, right down here is Reunion. Eventually, there's going to be a road that connects what they call the back way into Celebration through Island Village, which is this little area right here. You can see how close those are. For those of you watching on YouTube, if you're listening to the podcast, you can see it's just kind of like a stone's throw between the back end of Reunion and the back end of Island Village. Thanks for the question. JJ says, when are you doing a video of the Hunters Creek? Come hang out at our fall festival at 1021 in Osprey Park. I'm going to get with my boy Dylan, who lives in Hunters Creek, and we are going to do a video on the area because enough people have asked about it. I definitely should. Emmanuel says, actually, demand in Dr. Phillips compared to Winter Garden. I'm misreading that. Actual demand in Dr. Phillips compared to Winter Garden. I think, listen, that, Dr. Phillips, huge fan because of the foods up and down Restaurant Row. The traffic off of I-4 is a bit of a mess, but once you get off there, I love Dr. Phillips because it's got older, mature houses. You have a couple newer neighborhoods, but the accessibility over to like Disney, Universal, Dr. Phillips is a great area. Winter Garden's just bigger, and it does have a lot more options in terms of houses. And so most people want the newer options that are over on that side of town. And so that's why the explosion. Dr. Phillips got to be Price differentiation 5 years ago, Dr. Phillips was probably like 15% more expensive than Winter Garden. Now it's not as different. It's actually quite close. But Dr. Phillips does edge out Winter Garden a little bit. I've got these new like I think they're called Smurl counters or something like that. You probably have seen them on TikTok and Instagram back on the shelves. So every time someone follows this on TikTok or Instagram, they change. I'm not sure if you can hear it. Let me know if you can listen to the podcast or live if you can hear it go click 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 click. It's cracking me up every time it happens. Um, Wiggy asked a good question. Are there any community forward areas similar to Celebration in Winter Garden? You know, community forward areas. So I would think when you say that, you mean that there's like a really active HOA where people are, um, yeah, just more active HOA. Uh, let's see. So in Horizon West or Winter Garden, there's a lot of communities like that are a bit smaller that have a like a more community vibe to them. Um, Now there are massive communities like Waterley that 2,000 houses and they do food truck rallies and there's multiple amenities and all that kind of stuff. But really, nothing is going to be as well done as Celebration in that area. There are areas like Oakland Park that feel very, very, very similar to Celebration because they're very similar builders. J&J Custom Homes is there. David Weekley's there. A few other builders that are more on the higher end side are within Oakland Park. But in terms of the super active HOA, it's hard to beat Celebration, which is why so many people like it. You think, Disney fans and close to Disney when you think of Celebration, but it's a really like tight knit community, which I think is really cool. Now you do have the Hamlin area. You've got Summerport. You've got a lot of different places up and down like that Hamlin area that are super active. But again, it's really, really hard to beat Celebration. All right, let's catch up. Oh my gosh, Joel asks me the question of the day. How's my flip going, buddy? Buddy, my flip is driving me insane. We bought this house and I was so excited because I thought it was a great deal. And listen, time has made it a great deal because I thought the comps on it were like 750 when I bought it back in February. And now, thank God, the comps are like 850 because I needed that buffer. We went through so many permit revisions with the city of Winter Park. It was just one thing after another, man. It was we were fighting with them over this garage permit for the past 2 months. It was like, the garage is here and there's like this little tree here, and they made me get like a little topography survey, and they're like, okay, that's great. We know that the law says 6 feet, but now we want it to be 13 feet, which would have killed my garage. And so it was like one thing after another. Long story short, it's taken like 4 months longer than I thought it would. It'll finally be done in like another month or two, but we're going to do a complete update video on the costs breakdown, the problems I ran into, the municipalities, all of this kind of stuff. And then the ultimate decision of, do I decide to keep it and rent it, or do I flip it? That is going to be the main question that I answer once we're finally done. Ranger Danger says, Ken, run for mayor, do Orlando what Giuliani did for NYC. Man, Buddy's got it. Buddy's got it already. I don't want to say nobody else should run because I want it to be a free, open election. But the dude's got so much name recognition, and that's what people vote on. He's been here for 25 years. I think he's got a really clear vision for the next 4 years. We will see what happens. I don't really talk politics, but you never know what the future may hold. Oh, Pickle says, have you ever thought about running for mayor? You'd be great. Oh, that's super kind. JJ says, Orange County is the 8th largest school district. More jobs, more opportunities. It's true. All right, let's see. Charles A says, has raising interest rates done anything to help with rising inflation? I can't believe the Fed is talking about interest rate hikes at this time. Yeah, Charles, it's definitely slowed down. I mean, you look at the CPI report, you look at the jobs report. Job report was not as healthy as they anticipated it might be. There's a lot of things going on right now. It does feel like the interest rate hike has put a halt to so many things. I've got friends of mine across the country that have lost their jobs. I feel like there's, major businesses that have decided to pull out on major investments, because you also have to think, It's not really the residential thing that I'm worried about. I'm actually more concerned about the commercial market. If there's going to be a pullback or a crash in any market, it's probably going to be the commercial one because you've got all these business owners. It works very differently. You probably know this, Charles, but if you don't, anybody watching, this is an interesting fact to me, is that you've got these people that will go get an apartment building, 400 units, or a strip mall, or something like that. And usually those are on 5-year notes. So many people bought these Chick-fil-A buildings or whatever it is, commercial buildings, at really, really cheap money, and it cash flowed and it did really well. But fast forward 5 years from now, when all of these notes start to come due, and all of a sudden they cannot make their payments because the interest rates are now so high, they're forced to refinance. Now, I think a lot of these banks are going to try to, I don't know, so they're going to have to do something because they're not going to want to take back all of these commercial assets. Maybe they'll sell them back. I don't know. It's going to be a really interesting thing with the commercial world. I do believe that that's actually the problem we should be focusing in, not so much on the residential side. But we'll see what happens. I do think that, heck, I don't know. I'm just one guy, but like reading the tea leaves, I believe we're going to be right here at this interest rate for probably the next 6 to 9 months. And then hopefully we'll start seeing rates pull back if the job of slowing inflation is finally done. All right, you guys started going back through and giving me some of your tips, your favorite places to eat in Orlando. We talked about Orlando being a foodie spot. And Dawn says, we like Boathouse at Disney Springs. That is one of my favorites as well. Get this, I guess, it's owned by Gibson's, same one that's over in Chicago. And apparently they said this is like the highest grossing restaurant in the country was Boathouse at Disney Springs. I believe it. It's not a cheap place, but the food's really great. The bread, the rolls, all the food, it's amazing. Let's see. Diz said Hangry Bison downstairs. I'll be honest with you, Hangry Bison, if you're watching, man, last couple times have not been awesome for me. I definitely was hoping for a little bit more. Rock and Brews over in Margaritaville. We've got some different people. Oh, Prado over in Winter Park. There we go. That is a good one. Go-to spots. Yep. Prado and Winter Park's a fantastic one. Well done, Matt H. All right, let's see. Martin says, less people move, less people sail because of the high rate. Yeah, you're right. You nailed it there. What's the latest on the Evermore resorts? This is from David B. Man, I've been driving by. Both entrances seem to be like they're almost done. They're working on the gates to get in. We flew a drone over there. We're going to put that over on Instagram here shortly. The Crystal Lagoon looks fantastic, but there's been no official announcement on dates. And so I'm actually really interested to hear the dining options there, because while I might not stay there right away, we staycation sometimes, but that's probably not the first place I would go. I am curious to see what food they put in there, because with the Conrad Hotel, usually that comes with a really great restaurant. So we shall see what happens. Philippi says, oh no, did I miss the beginning? From Orlando Audubon Park. Oh man, I love Audubon Park. I don't know if you guys saw, I did this downtown video recently. We did put one on Tuesday, but then I did another one maybe 3 or 4 months ago. And I was talking about different like hidden gem neighborhoods in downtown Orlando, and Audubon Park was definitely one of them, high up there for my opinion. Kelly says, our favorite restaurants anytime we're in Orlando is definitely in Disney Springs. Boathouse. Buttery lobster rolls are fire. That is true. Joel says, sorry about your problems on the Winter Park half flips, but I'm sure it's going to be great. Dude, it is going to be, I mean, like, finishes are going to be perfect. I mean, my wife, she does all of the design work, has done an amazing job on this thing. I'm really excited to see what happens. And you guys are coming out like with a lot of questions tonight. I freaking love it. Thank you so much. I've got a couple other little things I want to go over though as well. So Toll Brothers, as you guys know, I work with Toll Brothers a lot. I think they're one of the better production builders in Central Florida. They just offer like a higher tier product. Usually, new construction in Orlando, I think average price for new construction starts around $400. The average Toll Brothers house starts at $500. And it's all, they're all over, but they don't really have many Osceola County neighborhoods. In fact, there's only one. It's Westland Park in Sunbridge, which is in St. Cloud. It's the only place Toll Brothers builds. And houses there for them start like in the 900 range. But they're actually coming to Osceola County. This is actually Toll Brothers under contract for 116 lot subdivision in Osceola County with Lennar right now next door. And this is like really far down on 192. This is an article from the Growth Spotter. Shout out to Laura Kinsler. She's awesome. This is going to be right off of Whipplewell Lane. And if you look over here, this is Alligator Lake. And if you want to follow this down, this is quite far down 192. So you've got down Kissimmee, you got Hunters Creek, Gatorland, Ventura Lakes, and you follow this all the way down 192 until it turns into almost Harmony. You got Harmony is right here, which, oops, sorry for the crazy move around there. Harmony is right here. And right across the street, this is where the new Toll Brothers neighborhood's going to go in. So they've got Lennar in kind of the neighborhood next door. And right up here, they're going to be building 116 homes. And so they haven't said what pricing is going to be, but it does look like development's underway. This is kind of the workout of what's going to be in the neighborhood. It looks like a decent design in terms of rear entry homes, estate size homes, some backing to the pond, some backing to other houses and that sort of thing. But interesting to see some builders like Toll Brothers start moving into other communities other than just the norm, what we've seen, which is Lake Nona, Horizon West. I think that they were in Sanford for a while, but really they stick to the major ones. So to see them do like a little pocket neighborhood like this, I think it's kind of cool in a good area. Let's keep going. Oh, let's talk about, so we talked about construction and my mindset around financing and all of that kind of stuff. So for many of you know, I go through a lot of permitting data just to find out what's coming to Orlando before you might see it other places. And it's interesting to see how much money is still being spent. For a while, I would say for 6 months or so, this bar right here where construction was actually starting was really, really low. We had a lot of projects going into the abandoned or delayed pile. And now we're starting to see more pre-design, more bidding and negotiations all the way through construction. And there's some really high dollar stuff coming to Orlando, which is really exciting to see. Everything from obviously theme parks, but logistic parks, tech parks, obviously a Publix on every corner. It is definitely interesting to see how diverse this kind of economy is going with interest rates even being this high. And so talking to some of the developers, I'm like, how is this that you guys are starting construction on multi-million, sometimes darn near billion-dollar developments with the current climate? And they say, listen, we look at everything in like the 4 to 5 year range. And do we think we're going to be in this high interest rate climate and the craziness that we're seeing right now in the next 3 to 4 years when a lot of these are finished? No, we don't. So of course, we're going to start now and hope that by the time we're done, that rates are a little bit more palatable. So I think that's interesting. It's good. Obviously, things aren't coming to a stop. We're moving forward. So that's a good thing. And speaking of that, Altamont Springs was the first city in the nation. This is another one by Growth Spotter. Great article by Dustin. Talks about Altamont Springs is the first city in the nation to use the new AI program for its site plan reviews. Now, what does that even mean? So site plan reviews are essentially like if a developer comes in and they say, hey, we want to submit for a new neighborhood, we want to submit for a new building, we want to submit for whatever it is. Usually that whole plan process takes at least 2 to 3 weeks, if not 2 to 3 months and sometimes. And with, time kills deals, right? Some people get anxious, the buyer, the seller, the developer. And so how do we get through all of this new construction that we have in Central Florida if we have to rely on somebody's little compass and pencil and trying to figure out if a site plan fits within budget? So anyways, you got this Altamont Spring, the first to use this AI program. Apparently there's something called, it's a Florida-based company called Auto Review AI. It's a newly formed company that's supposedly around to revolutionize the way that code compliance checks are done in a state-of-the-art patent pending technology. Basically, they can take plans, and what used to take 2 to 3 weeks is what Altamont Springs says it would take them. Now it takes like 2 to 3 minutes, which is wild, because then people like me that are trying to put a garage on a piece of property, I submit a plan for review, and they give me a thumbs up, thumbs down while I'm waiting. That could be huge. Now, they say it's not going to eliminate any jobs. In fact, they'll just be able to catch up on the backlog and hopefully spur more development in the Altamont Springs area if they're willing to do stuff like this. They're actually going to not pass the costs along to the taxpayer. That's another thing they want to be really clear on. They're going to be passing this off to the developer and say, hey, if you want to save 2 to 3 weeks or 2 to 3 months, pay this fee and we will expedite your site plan. And so I think that's what we need. Like, I don't think cutting corners is ever what we want for any of our developments. I think that they need to have it to the letter of the law. But some of this stuff takes really long. Like the city of Orlando, we have so many clients over in like Lake Nona where they were just sitting on plans. It felt like for months before they got approved. So the more stuff like this that can happen in our world, I think that would be great. Jill mentions, going back to food, I discovered North Italia and Dr. Phillips during Magical Dining event and loved it. I tell you what, that is one of my favorites in Orlando recently. Really great food. The pricing, this I was shocked to know how cheap it was. Maybe it's because I eat at Disney so often. Anytime I go and get a really great meal and it's not $100, I'm like, what just did they forget something on my bill? But North Italia, it's right on Restaurant Row. For those of you who don't know, if you know where Ocean Prime is, that's the sign you can easily see. North Italia is kind of right next to it. Amazing food, really great food. Appetizers were on point, entrees, drinks, all of it. 10 stars. We loved it. Make sure you check it out. We need a Martin says we need a Foxtail coffee store in Horizon West. We have one, dude. It's over right near Hamlin. If you know where, like, funny enough, if you know where the Starbucks is in Hamlin, just take that road right over into New Independence, up and around by Bridgewater, and keep going down that road. Not tiny, but the one that keeps going east. And there's this little strip mall with, I think it's Marco's Pizza, and then there's a Foxtail right there, which is wild. I heard that they're opening a Foxtail in Vegas, which seems wild. Like that they don't just go to Tampa first or Miami. It was like Vegas. Seems aggressive. Philip says, if I want great tapas, Bula is really good. I have not been there. That I do need to check out. Let's see. Master Gundam says, Lake Nona is amazing. Laureate Park is the best. Thanks, Ken, for allowing me to find out about this incredible neighborhood. Of course, that's our goal, man. And that, speaking of which, Starbucks is coming to Lake Nona Town Center. Yeah, if you've ever been up and down Lake Nona Boulevard, or yeah, the boulevard right off of 417, and there's this like little kind of turnaround building. It's like a big round building. They're putting Starbucks right on the main level. It's going to be a really easy drive through, which I think is kind of cool. All right, a couple more things, and I want to get some more questions over here with you guys, but this is interesting to me. I look at, anytime there's a recession and or a pullback in spending, big companies like Disney, like Universal, start offering more discounts, and that's definitely happening right now. So Disney just launched a bunch of new park deals, including half off hotels, ticket packages, dining discounts, and more, from $50 kids tickets, hotel discounts, dining promos. Both Disney World and Disneyland have new ways to save on your next trip. And so I'll put this in the comments below on like how you can actually do that. You can also reach out to our friends, Dan and Leslie. They've been on the show before. I'm sure they can help you kind of walk through some of this stuff. But there's a lot of different discounts happening on so many, like from a dining perspective, but then also really nice hotel stays. Like they're having some of their 4-day and 5-day stays get discounted very significantly, which I think is a really cool thing. RIP to the Star Cruiser that closed this past week. It was kind of a bummer. I was talking to some friends of mine that were on one of the last trips, one of the last voyages, and they talked about how like people were crying, the cast members were crying, and like what's going to happen to that building will be a really interesting thing. I think they have to keep it for something like 2 to 3 years, like do nothing with it so they can write it off, and then they have to change it in some way. It'll be interesting to see what Disney does, because it's such a big property. Like they dropped $300 million on the building, and because it's so close to Galaxy's Edge, do they link it up somehow? Do they do a dinner theater there? Do they make it Marvel? Who knows? But I do think that we just hit it at the absolute wrong time. Like it opened last year in the summer, right when things were starting to dip for the economy. And so it's obviously a high dollar ticketed price to get in there. My family and I, we were lucky enough to do it. And it was like the best experience ever. So anyways, RIP to those folks on the Star Cruiser. Justin says, what's up? What's up, my homie? Good to see you, man. Juliet says, are there any prospects for gas stations coming to Horizon West? There is. I mean, so on Sidell, there's a 7-Eleven, and there's, let me think, there's 2, 4, 6, I think it's 6 pumps. It's either 6 pumps or 12. I don't know how they're building it out, but I saw them putting in the pumps just recently. So there's a new Starbucks on Sidell, right next door, a 7-Eleven with a gas station, which is super needed. So now you'll have Walmarts to go to, 7-Eleven to go to, or the one behind Magic Kingdom is really the only place we can get gas. Going through, gosh, I missed a ton of questions here. Jacqueline says, is there any progress over at Olympus in Claremont? I actually have a meeting with somebody from the city that I'm excited to talk about to figure out what's going on with the Olympus project. But last time I drove through there, it's really more the road network is more impressive than I've seen it in recent history. And they have to get that going first. I do wonder if that some of this kind of economy stuff with the cost of construction and the cost of financing has slowed it down a little bit. But I was always told from the developer, from everybody in the area, that it was going to be Olympus retail, commercial jobs, hospital first, and then residential second. And it does to me look like more residential first and then followed up by the commercial down the road. Now, I did mention this on a couple shows ago that it sounds like the city council is going to stop approving new residential in order to force the developer to start building out some of that commercial as they promised. If that becomes like 100% truth and word, I'll let you know. But that would make sense to me if I was them. Um, Pickle says, any updates on bringing the MLB team to Orlando? So I'll tell you, I mean, I went to the permitting and they're moving forward with pre-design. So it looks as though they're trying to move forward. They just have to find funding, and then I'll also get an MLB like approval, I'm sure. So many of these things, it'll go through like, hey, can we get the land? Yes. Can we get the pre-design? Yes. Can we get the city or the county in this case to approve it? Yes. Okay. Then after that, once we find the funding, then they go to the MLB and try to get it approved. And so many times they'll go through this entire process and spend tens of millions of dollars on design work and getting it approved, only to get stalled out somewhere else. So it happens. I mean, we look at how many hotels and how many condo buildings and all these other kind of stuff that I get super stoked about. And then, 2 years into it, they just abandon it. Right. And so we'll see. I mean, you know that I will tell you guys the moment that something happens for sure. Salam asks, any idea of any mom and pop shops coming to Lake Nona? Tired of all the chain restaurants, Miller's Ale House, and now Raising Cane's. Yeah, that Narcoossee strip is an interesting one, isn't it, Salam? Like, it's very chain forward. You've got a lot of Raising Cane's and Miller's, right? But the Lake Nona side, or the Tavistock side, where the restaurants are actually owned by the Tavistock Restaurant Group, while they're not mom and pop shops, they're at least new concepts, right? Let's see, like Nami. Let's see, Wave Hotel. I think that opened up. When is this guy opening up? Go to. I want to make sure I get this right because I don't want to misquote. But if you're into like Japanese cuisine, Nami over at the Wave Hotel is getting ready to open. If not, they already are open. That's a new concept that's coming up. There's a bunch of other stuff coming over to the Lake Nona West, that sort of thing. So like, if you want to get away from Narcoossee to get outside, that's what you're gonna have to do. Go over to like the Tavistock Restaurant Group side and get a little bit more unique sort of things. Ronaldo says, any idea if Osceola Parkway extension will break ground soon? Traffic is wild. So it's already funded, dude. So I don't know why they haven't really started on that stuff. I mean, you can look up and down 417 and see how much dirt they're moving up and down the entire way. And so I'm just kind of I'm curious to see, like, are they just waiting to finish 417 and then take all of those crews and then divert them over to Osceola Parkway extension? That makes sense to me. But man, I'm right there with you, because every time I drive up and down there, I'm like, we need some more options. I attended this opening for Narcoossee. They added more lanes and they did all this other stuff. And I'm like, the moment it was done, it was already filled back with cars. So like, yeah, it's better, but it's still, they need more stuff in that east side of town for sure. But listen, I missed somebody asked about Target. If you're asking about Target, yeah, there we go. So Nima says, is Target still coming to Lake Nona area? Yes. Apparently that's a done deal. That's coming over to Lake Nona West. My guess is the next 2 years, you're going to see it there. So that's another thing, like up and down that Lake Nona Boulevard. It's going to be nice. There's going to be every creature comfort, along with what my man Salam was asking about, different food options. So you need that sort of thing. Like, I don't like Whole Foods and Trader Joe's isn't going to come. It doesn't sound like, but more like a Sprouts would be great, or some kind of other option other than Publix. Publix is great. Florida company, love it. And something a little bit more homegrown would be even better. So anyways, make sure if you guys, I know a lot of time we talk about the real estate thing. If you guys are looking just to get some insight on if you want to buy a house, or if you're just like, hey, what's my house worth? I bought it 3, 4, 5 years ago. Anything in between, whether you're buying or selling, my team and I, we do want to be your real estate resource of choice. We're always here to help. And many times people reach out and they're a year, 2, 3 in advance, and that's totally fine. So just don't feel like you're bugging us. We want to help as much as possible. So make sure you reach out, info@positgroup.com, or follow me over on Instagram. Definitely over here to help. Other than that, I hope you have an amazing Thursday, Friday, Saturday for the weekend. And we'll see you guys next week.